I could have done this, but it's way to chair. I went through it. Yeah, I could.
Oh, boy.
That's an excellent.
Oh my.
I know, I know, you know, I was here.
Okay, Ms. Schwartz, we're ready when you are, ma'am.
All right.
Great. Well, good morning. For just a couple more minutes, my name is Emma Schwartz and I'm the chair of the Agency Operations Committee. It is 11:59 a.m. and I'd like to call the October 26th Agency Operations Committee meeting to order. Please be aware that this meeting is being broadcast via the internet. So before we begin, I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome those who will be joining us via Zoom and ask that they observe the following etiquette. Please state your name before you speak. Mute your microphone when not speaking and keep background noise to a minimum. Members, when I call your name, please announce present. Welcome Wilson, Vice Chair. Javed Anwar. Fred Farias.
President.
Oh, good.
Where is everybody? Robert Gaunt.
Present.
Daniel Williams.
Here.
Georgia Blackwell, student member.
Here.
And myself, Emma Schwartz. Do we have a quorum?
Yes, ma'am, we have a quorum.
Great. Please record in the minutes that we do have the quorum. Agenda item 2 is consideration and possible action to approve the minutes from the July 27th, 2022 Agency Operations Committee. Do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
Motion to approve.
I cannot see who that is, but
Robert.
Robert. Sorry, from Zoom, it's a little difficult. Do I have a second?
Second, Donna.
Donna, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Okay, agenda item 3 is public testimony. We do not have anyone registered to testify today, so we'll go on to the next item. Agenda item 4 is approval of the consent calendar. We do not have any items on the consent calendar today, so we'll move on to the next agenda item. Agenda item 5A is a report on grants and contracts. This item does not require any action. Members, the reports were included with the agenda materials that you received prior to the meeting. Ms. Nicole Bunker Henderson, General Counsel, is available if you have any questions. Any questions? We can save Mary some steps because I'm hearing none, which will allow us to move on to the next agenda item. Agenda item 5B is an update on agency preparations for the 88th Texas legislative session. This item does not require any action. Ms. Amy Peterson, Assistant Commissioner for External Relations, will present this agenda item and be available to answer questions. Ms. Peterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. The 88th legislative session convenes on January 10th, and our preparations are already well underway. Our main focus so far has been the budget, and we're really anticipating a very big surplus this time around. So it'll be a very different conversation than last session. After y'all adopted our legislative appropriations request in July, the commissioner presented it to the governor's office and the LBB in September, sorry. Since then, we've been working with legislative offices and the LBB as they develop those initial House and Senate budget bills. Those have to be released to the public about a week into session. So we should see those about mid-January. And then we also should see the biennial revenue estimate from the comptroller right before session begins, probably January 9th. And that will really set the stage for how much money that the legislators have to work with during the session. We're also working on a number of policy issues that we expect to come up. One of those is the Commission on Community College Finance. Over the past year, the commissioner and agency staff have been supporting the commission, and they adopted their final recommendations last week and will be putting out their final report next week. Y'all will actually be getting a presentation on those recommendations tomorrow from the commissioner and Chairman Woody Hunt. And as we move forward in the next few months, we're also going to be working closely with the legislative members from the commission to develop those recommendations into the legislation that'll follow. Another important issue next session is going to be college affordability. As you remember, our largest exceptional item request would provide the additional funding needed to maintain all of our major financial aid programs, as well as our GEAR-funded Texas Transfer Grant and Texas Leadership Scholars programs. The commission itself, the Community College Commission, is also recommending increased financial aid funding for TEOGs, as well as economically disadvantaged dual credit students. During the session, we also expect continued conversations on improving transfer, as well as a really in-depth look at research funding at our four-year institutions. Looking ahead, we've got the general election coming up on November 8th. Then the legislatures can start filing their bills on November 14th. So we'll start keeping track of all of those at that point. As we continue our preparations, we're going to be looking to all of y'all to help us with outreach as we work to be good partners to the institutions during session, as well as a reliable resource for the legislative offices. We're going to be providing y'all regular updates as the session goes on, but you always can reach out with just general questions, and we're happy to provide background information on the different issues that pop up. Now, I'm happy to answer any questions and also defer to the commissioner for any additional comments.
Thanks, Amy. So again, just underlying the point that we want to keep the board closely apprised, but also looking forward to working closely with the board members, and of course also with the members of our Texas Higher Education Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be one of the most important sessions for higher education that we've seen in a long time. And so we want to work closely with the board, with the institutions to help advocate for higher education, for strategic investments in our students and in our institutions, and aligned with the vision we've outlined in building a talent strong Texas.
So Amy, has there been any restructure like in the Senate and public and Senate? Can you kind of talk
There
about the
has.
changes since last session, please?
Yeah. For the last few sessions, I believe, we've had separate Senate committees for pub ed and higher ed. And this time around, they are going to be combined into a single committee. We are fully expecting Brandon Creighton to continue to be the chair of that combined committee. He, I believe, is planning on having a subcommittee for higher ed specifically, but that is yet to be seen. You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? If not, thank you very much, Ms. Peterson. Moving on to agenda item 6A, it's review of the fiscal year 2022 financial report to the board. This item does not require any action. Ms. Sarah Keaton, Associate Commissioner for Administration, will present this item and be available to answer questions. Ms. Keaton.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee. Wanted to take just a couple of minutes at the start of this financial report. Chairman, you mentioned at the start of the meeting this morning that Ken Martin has retired. So I wanted to take just a minute to publicly thank him for his service, even though he's not here today, just in case he's tuning in his retirement. And then also to introduce to the board and committee members our new and incoming leadership for the finance team. So I'll start with Maria Hernandez is our new deputy CFO. And prior to joining the coordinating board, Maria spent the last 2 years as the federal funds lead and senior revenue estimator at the comptroller's office. Prior to that, she worked at the legislative budget board for almost 20 years, where she was the fiscal project and process improvement officer, and then also served as the federal funds team manager there. So Maria has a bachelor's degree from Wellesley College and also a master's in public administration from the LBJ School at UT Austin. And we're very excited to have her on board. She joined the team in October. I know her experience with federal funds and state and federal budget processes will be a huge help to the agency as we continue to navigate kind of administration of all the federal funds that we've received and look forward to session. And then Anthony Infantini is the incoming CFO for the agency. Anthony is currently the CFO at the Texas Department of Insurance. He has been with TDI since 2010. Prior to that, he worked as an actuary and actuarial consultant. Anthony has a bachelor's degree in math from Johns Hopkins and an accounting certificate from ACC. And as part of his work at TDI, Anthony's been really involved with a lot of statewide coordinating work across state agencies. In particular, he served on the statewide CAP steering committee and the State Agency Coordinating Council. And I think those experiences will be very valuable as he comes to join us at the coordinating board. So if there's any questions about that, just wanted to kind of introduce those people to you. Oh, and then I also wanted to mention that Mr. Glenn Osher, our Director of Financial Reporting, who's been with the agency for many years, will be reporting to the board tomorrow on the bond issuance item, in addition to our outside bond counsel and financial advisors. So that item is on the full board agenda for tomorrow, but you'll be hearing from Glenn Osher on the team on that item. In terms of the financial report to discuss today, just wanted to mention that the state fiscal year ended August 31st. So this report reflects the end of the state fiscal year. There are several items that you'll see on pages 3 and 4 as having available budget at the end of the fiscal year. Those are programs for which the agency has unexpended balance authority to carry those funds into fiscal year 23. And we anticipate that those funds will be fully expended in 23. And these are programs where it's pretty standard and typical for the agency to have some funds that move forward from the first year of the biennium into the second year. The federal fiscal year for all of the gear funded projects that we have going on ended September 30th. So right now we're engaged in kind of all of the final encumbrances and closeout processes for that first year of year funds, and then transitioning to administering and focusing on that second year of year funding that we have. So, and that concludes my financial report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Keaton. Members, do you have any questions? I want to say welcome to the new team. That's exciting. And also, I wonder if Ken is tuning in today, and wishing him well. Okay, hearing no questions, we'll move on to the next item. Agenda item 7A is the auditor's update on internal audit reports and activities. This item does not require any action. Mr. Mark Pale, Assistant Commissioner for Internal Audit and Compliance, and Mr. Paul Mayert, Assistant Director for Internal Audit and Compliance, as well as Mr. Richard Tarr, External Quality Assurance Team Lead, will present this item and are available to answer questions. Mr. Tarr is joining us via Zoom. Mr. Pale.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Good to be with you today. So we're going to move pretty quickly through this. You have two reports on your in your materials. The first is a statutorily required report that we provide to the state auditor's office each October. I'm not going to spend much time on it because it contains information that you've already seen during the year, things like our audit plan and information about our reports that have been issued during the year. So this is a compilation of those materials that's required to be provided by statute. The second project where I would like to spend a few minutes, and where our consultant has joined us by Zoom, is our external quality assurance review of internal audit and compliance monitoring. So professional standards and state law both require that we be evaluated on a 3-year cycle for our compliance with professional auditing standards. There's many ways to satisfy this requirement with a range of rigor and cost. The board has chosen to have our function be evaluated in a rigorous way, and we engaged a consultant to perform this review, and a report is, as I indicated, in your materials. Just briefly to set this up before we turn it over to Mr. Tarr. Mr. Tarr was assisted by Ms. Jay Stepp. Richard Tarr is a certified internal auditor and a certified information systems auditor with 35 years of internal audit and IT experience in developing, training, and evaluating internal audit departments in both the public and the private sectors. Having conducted more than 150 quality assessment consulting engagements over 25 years, he has an extensive understanding of the internal audit profession and how the audit process can be improved across organizations of all sizes and various sectors. His experience has given him a broad knowledge base about what constitutes best-in-class practices regarding all kinds of internal audit activities. He was assisted in this by Ms. Jay Stepp. She's not joining us today, but Ms. Stepp has decades of internal audit experience, particularly with Texas state government and more particularly with Texas state government agency audit department. So that was very valuable as well. So at this point, I would turn it over to Mr. Tarr, and he can walk you through his conclusions.
Good
Mr.
morning.
Mr. Tarr.
Yes, hopefully you can hear me now. Can you hear me?
Now we can, yes.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Thank you for the opportunity to present your internal audit activity. There are three sets of standards that have to be complied with: the Institute of Internal Auditors standards, the GAO standards, and of course the Texas Internal Auditing Act. Your internal audit activity has complied with all three of those. In fact, I've given them the highest rating on all three of those sets of standards. Now, I have also included in my report a number.
Mr. Tarr, we're having some troubles with your audio.
They are merely there to enhance and improve the capabilities of the internal audit activity at a Higher Education Coordinating Board. If you have any questions about those, I would be more than happy to answer them. The full report, I believe, has been presented in the packet that you have in front of you.
Mr. Tarr, we lost your audio for a minute, but I believe that what you were saying is that you gave the highest level of rating on all three of the indicators. However, you do have a series of recommendations for improvement that are minor. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, that's correct. The recommendations that I've made are not intended to correct any deficiencies. They're there to be considered as ways of possibly improving what you already have. Again, you could classify them as minor, but I hope you'll give them some consideration because I believe it will improve the effectiveness and certainly the productivity of what you're getting from your internal audit activity. Again, the internal audit department is, or function, I should say, is AOC committee's most valuable asset. They report directly to you and are your source of independent, objective viewpoints and opinions on how various activities and programs are performing.
Well, Mr. Pale, congratulations on a great review. And I don't know if you have any comments regarding the review, the process, or the recommendations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would like to thank my team because they do a mountain of work that that puts us in this position to have such an outstanding report. In terms of the recommendations, we're already well underway in moving forward with implementing them. I'd like to thank the commissioner for one of those recommendations in particular had to do with our staffing on the internal audit side, and so he's made it possible for us to actually be recruiting right now an additional internal audit position. And I know the chairman and I have had conversations over the years about just the adequacy of our staffing. And so that will be very beneficial to us as we move forward. Happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Any other questions? Mr. Tarr, thank you for that collaborative process, and congratulations again to the team.
Thank you.
Hearing no other questions, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Item 8A Numbers 1 through 11 are the auditor's updates on state and federal compliance monitoring reports and activities. These items do not require any action. Mr. Mark Pale, Assistant Commissioner for Internal Audit and Compliance, and Mr. Paul Mayer, Assistant Director for Internal Audit and Compliance, will present this item and are available to answer any questions. Mr. Pale.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For this item, I'd like to ask Mr. Mayor to walk us through.
Sure. In interest of time, I'll keep this pretty short. As far as compliance monitoring on the state side, we completed 11 projects, 2 of which had observations. The institutions are taking action on both of those. You can look at the reports for more detail there. There's a new section on the blue page called Corrective Action Status Report, and that's meant to track any recommendations that we make to institutions and keep track of ones that we have yet to verify. So take a look at that, and we'll talk about that a little bit more next time. And then lastly, federal compliance monitoring. We're continuing to work in that area. Again, any details are described in the blue page. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Are there any questions, members? If not, thank you very much, Mr. Pale and Mr. Mayor. And this concludes the Agency Operations Committee meeting. The time is 12:19. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Wilson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by someone, voice, name.
Bob Robert.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no.
Dr. Wong.
And the motion passes. Mary, you got a few minutes back. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, for those of you who are going to the coordinating board for lunch, Sarah is going to lead you to